Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more news and politics from around the world. This time for November the 5th, Sunday, 2023. Okay, we start. I don't know why I'm making these big gestures and everything. Woo! We start with a little bit here at home from the lever. Bidenomics has failed its inflation test. Economist Hal Singer on Team Biden's refusal to aggressively tackle rising prices and why we're all worse off because of it. Let's get this out of the way. I support Biden and his economic policies generally, that the government should make up for the shortfall in consumer spending during a recession with public spending is straight from the Keynesian playbook. And the results of those expansionary policies, according to some economic measures, are impressive. But despite a massive annual GDP growth of 4.9% in the last few months, Biden's approval ratings are still in the tank. 37% of all adults and just 75% of Democrats say he's doing a good job. What gives? One answer is that the pain of how the pain that households are suffering from higher interest rates spurred by Fed tightening beginning in 2022 is not picked up by the GDP numbers. Households are still spending, and spending is captured in the national income accounts, but they're spending on things they don't want, like high rents rather than home mortgages, or on student loan debt, which resumed in October, and credit card debt. The average credit card rate was nearly 21% in October of 2023, up from around 16% in March of 2022. Undergraduate students who took out new loans after July the 1st, 2023 will pay 5.5% compared to 4.99 for loans taken out in the prior year, compared to less than 3% for loans taken out 3 years ago. For the first time in decades, the rent to income ratio reached 40%, which means that people spend 40% of their take home pay on housing. And part of the reason that rents are surging is that would be homeowners are being priced out of the ownership market because of the higher interest rates. Mortgage rates are at a 2-decade high. The average rate on a 30-year mortgage was 7.8% as of last week, up from 6.7% for an identical loan in October of 2022. Higher interest rates have affected the economy from top to bottom. Homeowners on variable rate mortgages are paying higher interest. Higher rates discourage home construction, depriving future buyers of choices and putting upward pressure on home prices. And higher rates also harm entrepreneurs who depend heavily on financing to support startups. How is any of this suffering Biden's fault? Because Biden's economic team left inflation fighting almost entirely to the Federal Reserve. The caveat was the Inflation Reduction Act, which affects supply chain decisions concerning clean energy technologies of the future, but can't possibly address inflation in the present. Even the IRA's price regulation of select prescription drugs won't take effect till 2026. Had Team Biden taken on inflation more aggressively, the Federal Reserve, which controls the nation's monetary policy, could have pursued a less aggressive rate hiking schedule. With its narrow mandate to tackle inflation and unemployment, the Fed doesn't internalize the social costs from higher rates. I've written at length about the policies available to curb inflation in the short run here. To briefly summarize, Biden could have used the bully pulpit to shame and cajole firms that were exploiting the pandemic to impose massive price hikes. Congress could have held hearings to call executives to account for price gouging. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, could have investigated firms for announcing current or future price hikes or capacity reductions during earnings calls under the agency's unique Section 5 authority to police invitations to collude. States or local governments could have imposed limits on concentrated holdings of rental properties in the same neighborhoods. Congress could have imposed price controls sparingly in mature industries, as Germany did at the advice of heterodox economist Isabella Weber, to contain soaring gas and heating bills. Congress and states could have offered to supply alternative products in industries particularly hit by rising prices, as California did with insulin. Alas, Governor Gavin Newsom later vetoed an insulin price cap. Finally, Congress could have amended the Sherman Act, the country's main antitrust law, to give the Department of Justice, state attorneys general, and the private enforcers a better shot at policing collusion between companies. To their credit, I was invited to the White House to explore some of the heterodox policy ideas, but economist Larry Summers has a direct dial to Biden and his corporatist spin that consumer demand and greedy workers were to blame for inflation won the day. Indeed, some economists of the White House even mocked the early idea that firms and profit-taking were responsible in any way for inflation, as reported by Matt Stoller. Not only was the notion that the corporations exploited a mild bout of inflation as a pretext to raise prices beyond costs a widely held view among voters, it also happened to be true. Corporate profit margins began soaring in the second quarter of 2020 and in 2022 hit their highest level since 1950. Firms in concentrated industries were using the concept of general inflation as a pretext to hike prices well beyond any cost increases or staples like eggs and fast food. The Kansas City Fed found that nearly 60% of inflation in 2021 was because of corporate profits. And this is something I've tried to tell people over and over. Especially people around me, they don't want to believe that crap. They're like, no, it was a supply chain. A lot of this is corporate price gouging. This has been shown over and over and over. But no, they don't. People don't like listening to me because I tell the damn truth, and they don't like it. It turns out Summers' ideas were not only bad economics, but they were bad politics too. According to a data for Progress poll last year, 80% of voters said that lawmakers should crack down on large corporations that raise prices unfairly by promoting competition and lowering wages. Duh! That's common damn sense. But again, people don't like common sense. An alternative universe in which Biden takes a more muscular stance against inflation is hard for us to imagine. But let's imagine a world in which some combination of Biden, Congress, and the FTC enforcement action reduces inflation by 1 percentage point. Recognizing that it is no longer fighting inflation on its own, the Fed may have ended the tax rate hikes. Rate hikes in December 2022 instead of raising rates for 4 more times in 2023 or even earlier. With lower interest rates, many households could have afforded to buy their first home and start building equity rather than set their money on fire in rents. Financing expenses from student loans or credit card debt would have been even lower, freeing up resources to buy a fancy meal, a postponed vacation, or advanced Christmas gifts. And that's a political strategy. Spending on things that you actually want make you happier than spending on things you don't want. Yeah. This stuff is common sense. But it's like, no, you gotta spend the money more. The cost of things have been spiked by companies well beyond an adjustment for inflation. They're profiteering. Quite literally. And some people just can't seem to get that through their thick skulls. If you want to handle inflation, it's not all tax or not all rate hikes that should be done. No. You fight it by tightening the screws down on these companies, fining them, making them have to do things the right way. If you do not take the screws to them, they don't care. You have to tighten those screws on them. And then, if we didn't have a healthcare system that is a rapacious monster and put us all into debt or die, we could also afford other things. And the fact that home ownership is getting so damn expensive, yet wages are not moving, and thus more and more people are forced into rent situations, has also screwed things up. You know, it shouldn't be this hard to figure out. I know what the fuck is going on, how to fix it. Why don't you? Seriously! Now, let's go ahead and like always, I'll put the link in the description box. Let's head over to the next thing. We have a chart here. The highest grossing movies of the year for 2023. Number 1, the Barbie movie. $635.9 million. Yeah. It. I remember how many conservative people talk like, it'll disappear after a week. Bitches, y'all don't seem to get this. This ain't about you. This is a kid's film. For the kids out there who like Barbie, yes, there also are adults who do like Barbie. But for the most part, this is a film for the kids. And the kids seem to absolutely love it. So get over yourselves. Next was Super Mario, the Mario Brothers movie, at 574.9 million. I didn't get a watch. Honestly, I haven't got to watch any of these movies. I keep meaning to go out and watch movies, but it just doesn't work out that way for me. Because there are some movies I'd like to see, but... Then we have Spider-Man Into the Multiverse, I think it is. Across the Spider-Verse. Okay, that's what the name of it was. And that was at 381.3 million. So yeah, we're already hitting about that halfway mark from the top film. And that's just at number 3. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy at 358.9 million. Then Oppenheimer at 324.4 million. The Little Mermaid at 298.1. Quantumania at 214.5, and then we get into the 100 million films. John Wick, I think it was 4, at 187.1. Angel of Freedom at 184.1, and the most recent Indiana Jones at 174.4. Now, some of this you have to realize is due to many people not going out to theaters near as much. We're hitting an age where the theaters, I won't say they're dying, but they're less influential as they were. So yeah. And you can really see that here, because some movies, they cost much more to make, and yeah, being down here is not going to really cut it. But yeah, just something to look at there. Next one we're going to look at, we have some images here from history. Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3. It set a U.S. record for ticket sales, pay-per-view revenue, and largest indoor event in 1987. Yeah. I think Hulk Hogan was supposed to be like 6'7", right around 300 pounds. While Andre, yeah, he was supposed to be just over 7 foot. I think it's been suggested he was around 7'4". I know he got up 400 around 500 pounds sometimes, so yeah. Big fella. Both big fellas, but Hogan, so a lot of it is just steroids and stuff. But yeah, if you're someone who enjoys wrestling, it's a memorable moment. Hogan versus Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3. Yeah, most of the WrestleManias haven't been great events, so yeah. Here's another image. President McKinley greeting well-wishers minutes before he was assassinated in 1901. Yeah, President McKinley gets shot, and his vice president, Theodore Roosevelt, takes over. So, yeah. A big moment in history, so. Next story, or whatever we got here, this is from ABC Australia. abc.net.au. I don't know if it's necessarily part of the actual ABC network, as it, that's from here, the American Broadcasting Corporation, but regardless, it's abc.net.australia. Donald Trump claims he won all 50 states in 2020 U.S. election in a Florida speech ahead of the New York court appearance. He's gotten so delusional. And he's just spouting what he thinks his worshippers want to hear. So, yeah. He claimed that he won all 50 states in the 2020 election at a Florida event where two of his rivals for the presidential primaries were booed for suggesting the party should dump the former president before his legal woes catch up with him. I don't get how there are so many people who think he's almost like Jesus, and they'll just worship him like he is. This is from Vanity Fair. Speaker Johnson. GOP funding Israel aid by cutting the IRS is just us being good stewards of taxpayer resources. You're an idiot. You're wanting to cut from the IRS because you love using it as an evil force, but you're wanting to give more aid to Israel, who's committing genocide. So, I don't know if that's necessarily being a good steward of the fucking economy or not, dumbass. The guy's an idiot. This is from SciPost. Women's sexual unrestrictedness tied to economic empowerment and reduced parenting demands. Yeah. When they don't really have to worry about kids or money, many women get a lot more sexually willing to do stuff. I mean, it's just common sense. If you got money and you got free time, yeah. When women face lower physiological parenting costs or have greater economic access, they tend to exhibit more sexual unrestrictedness, according to a new cross-cultural research published in Evolutionary Psychological Science. The study provides critical insights into the complex interplay between biology and culture in shaping human sexual behavior. Yeah, I mean, women try to think ahead. They've got so many other things to consider. Men have a lot of things to consider, but we're pretty smooth brain when it comes to sex. It's like, I really shouldn't. But Richard says I should. So I will. So, yeah, that's how it tends to go for a lot of guys. This is from Times of India. Iran says U.S. will be hit hard if no ceasefire in Gaza. Yeah. Iran said the United States would be hit hard if Washington did not implement a ceasefire in Gaza. The country's Minister of Defense was quoted as saying by the semi-official Tasnim news agency on Sunday, "Our advice to the Americans is to immediately stop the war in Gaza and implement a ceasefire, otherwise they will be hit hard." I've been saying this for a while. We're at the damn door for World War III. You know, I could understand trying to help send weapons and stuff to Ukraine. Russia was the one who invaded, but this should have already been over at this point. You should have been at the peace negotiation tables. Israel and Gaza? Seriously. There should have already been a ceasefire. Honestly. And because Israel's went off the damn rails being like, "We're gonna kill them all, boys! Woo!" Now we have other countries being like, we are tempted to get involved. And no one seems to give a damn. Anyway, from the Hill, Israeli ambassador says military can't distinguish between civilians, terrorists, and the Gaza death toll. Seriously? Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Herzog, on Sunday said the Israeli military is unable to distinguish between civilians and terrorists in Gaza's reported death toll amidst the war in Hamas. So, instead, you're just going to keep killing people. When presented with reports of thousands of Palestinian civilian casualties on CBS News' Face the Nation, Herzog said, "I will be very careful about judging those numbers because neither you nor I know how many of them are armed terrorists and how many are..." Let me tell you something, dumbass. The majority of them are civilians. You don't play bomb the barrel of fish over and over and over and over and expect you to be able to get all of them. As far as Hamas. Yeah, we keep dropping bombs. We're going to take out Hamas. No, you're going to kill a lot more civilians than you're going to kill Hamas. Fucking dumb sumbitch. So let's be very careful about it, because I don't know how many of them are terrorists, and our military says that it kills numerous terrorists in armed clashes, so let's be very careful about that. The ongoing violence in Israel and Gaza is approaching 1 month since Hamas, a U.S.-designated terrorist group that controls the Gaza Strip, launched a bloody incursion into Israel that killed more than 1,400 people, including hundreds of Israeli civilians. Yes, and I have condemned such actions over and over. But dropping bombs non-stop for a month goes well beyond self-defense. It goes into retribution and genocide. Anyway, let's move on to the next article. This is from Jerusalem Post. IDF finds rocket launchers next to children's playground in Gaza. This is further proof of Hamas's ceaseless use of the civilian population as a human shield for terrorist purposes. And to be honest, I kind of doubt this whole thing they say. Because they have lied over and over and over and over and over. Why should we believe you if you do nothing but goddamn lie and play propaganda? This also is from the Jerusalem Post. Israeli source says many hostages in Gaza are still alive. Yeah, this is after criticism that all their bombing may have killed some of the hostages. All they can say is that many hostages in Gaza are still alive. They won't say all, because even they're like, that's a little too far, because we may have killed some of them with all the bombing. From Ynet, video likely shows Gaza civilians shot by Hamas as they were trying to evacuate to safety. Supposedly, likely shows. Disturbing footage shows northern Gaza streets strewn with bodies of Palestinians allegedly gunned down by Hamas snipers. They want to use them as human shields and will kill anyone who attempts to leave. You sure it ain't just from the fact that you bombed the ever-loving hell out of northern Gaza? Have you ever considered that? Now, let's get into some videos here. Palestinian child trembles in fear after surviving an Israeli bombing in Gaza. And see, that's the kind of actions by Israel that makes a child like that, when they get older, become extremist. But for some reason they don't get that. I don't know why it's so hard for them to understand. Hey, maybe we shouldn't bomb and risk the lives of so many people. Really? Reload. I'm having some trouble with it. It wouldn't click it or anything. This might be my last update, as I'm not sure I'll survive until morning. Bassam, a young lady in Gaza, speaks about Israel's worsening war crimes. Dangerous Updates, Part 1. It is a video, but why it's not playing? I do not know. Yeah. That's why BDS was there in the first place, but people were like, you cruel, you don't like Israel because you back BDS. Now Israel's committing genocide, and they're like, I don't know what you mean. I was gonna. Oh, there it plays. Of course, now you play. Pause. Thank you. Unmute.
Hey everyone, this is Bissam from Gaza. I'm still alive. Today is the day 30 of the war in Gaza, and this might be the last update that I can give to you. I'm not sure I will survive until tomorrow in these conditions. I will give you an update for the past 2 days and this night, the last night. What happened is that the Israeli army start targeting any way to survive. They are targeting any way to generate electricity. The Israeli army targeted the whole solar cells in the whole Gaza city, over buildings, over bakeries, and anywhere that contains solar cells. It was bombed. Israeli army bombed the major petroleum and water tanks in the Gaza city also, and the wheat stocks. The bakeries were threatening that if they were open they will be bombed, and they were ran out of petrol and wheat. But then after obtaining some of them, their stocks were bombed tonight. There is no any piece of bread since 4 days in the Gaza city. Since 4 days there is no clean water to drink in anywhere, because we need electricity to find the water, and there is no water. Even the water that anyone can obtain in Gaza now is not clean, is not drinkable. That's first. So after
there has been news that comes out that many of the doctors and stuff are just having to consume IVs because it's being almost impossible to find clean water. I mean, they already had trouble getting clean water, salination and everything. If you cannot see or understand that Israel has gone from self-defense to genocide, I don't know what to tell you. You know, it's like, well, why don't you believe Israel? As I've already said before, they've lied over and over and over. They played the propaganda game so fucking much that I have trouble believing anything they say. Honestly.
Bombing the infrastructure and any way to obtain water or bread. After bombing any way to obtain electricity for the hospitals or for any place. They tonight dropped between 100 to 300 white phosphorus bombs over Shata refugee camp. Shata refugee camp is in the west of Gaza City, is near to Shifa hospital. Bombing the Shata means that the gas went all over Gaza City. Tonight, my eyes, my nose and my mouth start burns. My head, I had headache, and people start coughing and trying to find a seal, any seal, like any. They dropped the gas to evacuate us, to lead us to go outside Gaza. By the way, this morning, after cutting off the internet, cutting off the connections and cutting everything, they dropped posts from the sky, paper posts, telling people that they have to evacuate. This is their last chance to go to the south. They have to evacuate to the south, walking without using any vehicle.
Yeah, go to the south where they've already been fucking bombing!
It's planned. This is genocide. This is the whole elements of genocide. Making people strive, no food, no water, white phosphorus, and then go out. And even if we survived the white phosphorus, even if we survived the bombing, in the schools, in the hospitals, in our homes, there is no food, there is no water, there is no clean food, there is no clean water to drink. All what we have is the water, salty water from the sea. Now the sea is all what we have. They are trying to kill people by hunger, by making them thirsty and sick. They are trying to kill 1 million people by hunger. We do not have anything to eat. From the beginning of this war, we ate once a day. Now, even this time, we cannot afford it. There is no products, there is no food, there is no aid, there is nothing. We are dying because of hunger. There is no aid. There is zero aid that enters the north. For 1 million people are still in the north. 1 million people are in the north. There is no food. There is no water.
Yeah. And finally, 55,000 pregnant Gazans living in dire conditions.
Palestinian women in the Gaza Strip are witnessing horrific moments where most of them have been delivering early, most of them have been suffocating from the phosphorus gas, and a lot of them were miscarrying their babies.
مش قادرة حتى تطلق يطلقنا من كتر الخوف. يعني عندك أنا أختي بقولها من امبارح مش فاتحة لغاية 2 سم. مش قادرين يعني من كتر الخوف إنها توفر إنها تعطي طلق.
I am now in Al Hilo Hospital, where all of the maternity department in Al Shifa Hospital was transferred here. This hospital was also targeted by an artillery tank. When we entered the hospital, we saw a patient that miscarried a baby in front of our eyes.
Lots of miscarriages has recently occurred due to bombings. Terribly horrifying, panic all over the place. People are afraid to even go to the hospital to receive services.
According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, at least 55,000 women in the Gaza Strip are supposed to deliver their babies in October and November. But the situation in the Al-Shifa hospital has been catastrophic, so that's why all of the maternity department from Al-Shifa hospital was transferred in this hospital. And they don't have any privacy where they can't change their clothes, they can't have their showers.
يعني على المية بدنا نروح من مكان لمكان لما نوفر نكسب مية.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Palestinian females that are suffocating from all of the situation that's currently happening.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. And your Israel supporters are like, we're just defending ourselves. We're just defending ourselves. We're just defending ourselves. We're just defending... Motherfucker, you are not defending your goddamn selves. Like, you went well beyond that point. Well beyond that fucking point. What you are doing now is a genocide and war crimes. And I'll be... for some fucking reason, our elected officials are like, let's bring back Israel, even though we're committing a genocide, because we love Israel. I am so sick and tired of these dumb fucks who are put in public office but do what they want to do, what their big money donors want them to do, instead of doing things to help the American people as a whole. Yeah. I mean, honestly, what... And while all this is happening, there's still the Ukraine-Russia war, where all this crap is going on that, as I've already said, should have been taken to the peace negotiation table. And then there's news that climate change, if we don't turn it right now, we're fucked. We've been getting closer and closer, but yeah, the turning point is pretty much here. And if we don't do anything, the world is, most of civilization on the world is fucked. I mean, you question sometimes if it's worth it at all to save humanity, or want to save humanity. I don't know. But then you have to remember, I cannot be so disheartened and taken into these dark spaces of misery that I give up on trying to be a good person. Which means you must respect other human beings treat them as you would want to be treated. Jeez almighty. I don't know, guys. I really just... It is disheartening. All you can do, though, is push through. But we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting links in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.